Hi, I'm Maggie,
Hi, I'm Grace, and this is
a very bookish podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to a Very Bookish podcast. Today's episode 81, and I have a special author guest with me all the way from Australia. So I'm literally talking to the future right now. I have Eve Dangerfield here with me. How are you today, Eve?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
I'm exhausted. I've had a long day of work. You are kind of just starting your day.
Yeah, I am. I'm like bright-eyed. It's 11 a.m.
Yeah, no, it's 7 p.m. in the middle of America, and I'm just like, I'm dying inside. I still have classwork I need to do. I'm just like, but I'm here, and I'm glad to talk with you because you have a new release that we're going to talk about later in this episode that some of our followers and listeners know. I'm a big reverse harem girly.
Mm-hmm.
And your new book might fall along those lines.
So, I'd say it definitely does. Yeah.
So for our listeners, you just gotta keep listening to see if it does or does not. But I'm gonna tell you, it does. So, so anybody who's listening and for anybody who hasn't heard about you, would you like to kind of introduce yourself and kind of give us a little background on who you are and how you started writing?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm based in Melbourne in Australia. I started writing romance novels like 7 years ago, which is completely crazy. I sort of did it, I was like 23 and I realized I was kind of the age of a lot of romance heroines, but I didn't really feel like necessarily there was a lot of representation of how I felt me or my friends approach sex and dating. And I also just had a lot of fantasies and a lot of kind of like kinks and stuff that I wanted to see explored, but this was like really early days for self-publishing. So I kind of thought like, oh, I'll give it a try. Like I'll try and write some books that I think kind of combine more realistic female characters and kind of filthy shit. And it kind of worked out really well for me. So yeah, all this time later, I kind of do this full time now, which is amazing. And yeah, it's all going really well.
I mean, okay, I have to start this episode off with talking about this because I have the book here with me, but the book we're talking about it today mostly is Velvet Cruelty. The cover.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful.
This cover. So for our guests, would you like to just give a little snippet about what Velvet Cruelty is and who January is?
Yes. So Velvet Cruelty is published by Dangerous Press, and it's in their Midnight Dynasty series, which is kind of like I describe it as the Marvel universe, but for romance novels. So you're sort of all the stories interact, even if they don't necessarily have the same characters. And so it's sort of a modern Snow White retelling. So January is sort of this very sheltered debutante. She's actually my first time writing kind of the atypical 18-year-old kind of virgin female heroine. But I was like, for Snow White, I feel like that's really appropriate. That's a very...
goes along those lines.
Yeah, like someone very pure and someone very protected who's kind of thrust into this world she really doesn't understand, kind of both people who kind of want something out of her. So it's sort of a coming of age combined with obviously a reverse harem romance novel. I'm a whore for reverse harem.
Like if I could have 4 men coming after me, like I can't handle one man alone as it is. I can't handle like one person as it is at the moment, but the fantasy of it.
Yes,
I would love to have a little me time with 4 other guys, and the sole purpose is to pleasure me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's no admin, no one has to like start a Google calendar about where everyone is. Like that's the fun of reverse harem. It all just works.
So like, because this is a reverse harem, did you have any difficulty with like kind of that building that relationship of the dynamic between the 4 guys and January, or was it kind of like you were able to map it out in your head, or was it hard, or what was kind of the struggle with that?
I really enjoyed it because I think the way I did it, so obviously again, modern Snow White retelling, I was like, I'm not going to do the 7 dwarves because that is crazy.
I mean, if she had 7 men, I wouldn't
it's
be
like
opposed.
I'm not a miracle worker. I can't write a romance between 7 dudes and 1 girl. The thought of it is like giving me hives. But so one character is the prince, one character is the huntsman, one character is called Doc, and another character is like is bashful. And the way, like, I think their romance with her works well because first I kind of figured out their dynamic with each other, which is like they're very kind of like forming a weird little family. Like one of them's kind of the distant dad, one of them's kind of the like overstressed mother. The two are the young teenage boys who are always fighting against each other. So like they kind of have this established dynamic. And then when it comes to her, she obviously comes and fits in with all of them, but then they all kind of have different relationships with her. You know, one of them, it's kind of more of a bully kind of enemies to lovers thing, and one of them it's kind of more of like a high school romance. So I sort of tried to give them all like a different dynamic with her as well. And I thought that way you kind of can't, sometimes with reverse harems I think you can confuse guys, or you can sort of some like, you know, maybe 2 of them have really strong personalities and the other 2 just kind of seem similar. So I really wanted to like separate everybody out and give them their own dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of one of the things I love about reverse harems is that each guy has their own like unique relationship with the girl. And like, I mean, myself in real life, I'm a monogamous person. Like, you try to fuck with somebody else, I'm gonna cut your dick off kind of person. Like, ain't nobody but me in your life. But like to fantasize about like more than one guy wanting to be with you and willing to share, like, not share with other people, but only a specific person, I'm just like, ooh, that's
and with these
hot.
other men that he loves, like I think that's really important with reverse harems too, establishing that like there's a really trusting relationship between the guys, so you're not kind of asking a bunch of random dudes to kind of, because then you'd be having to like force relationships between like 6 different directions. Whereas this way it's like they already know and love each other. The guys in my novel already run a business together called Velvet House, so they live together, they work together, they're very close, so it kind of makes sense that they've kind of got this dynamic already.
Do you think that, because like a lot of books have those like guy friend groups where sometimes it's like a guy friend group and they have that like one book is one guy's relationship, another book is another guy's relationship, and kind of that dynamic, do you think it's easier because like would you ever consider writing a book where she gets 4 guys and maybe one's like an enemy and then like the other 2 or 3 are like they're like already a team and she likes them, but then like she's kind of like I am the enemy and she's like, oh, you got a nice ass, you got a nice ass.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good idea. I definitely would love to do something like that. I have written a reverse harem novel in the past where there was, but again, you're right. They're already kind of an integrated group, so it would be cool to kind of see, kind of like, there's like 3 guys who are already friends, and one of them's, you're giving me like ideas. I feel like it can definitely be done. I feel like it can be done.
I tell you, I love reverse harem. Like Grace doesn't really like reverse harem or read them. And not a lot of like my in real life friends who do read my books really gear towards like those darker themes. But you know, I'm a single girl who lives with her cat. I need some like male validation in my life because I cannot get it from these guys in but nowhere middle of the United States. Like I can't do that here, so I might as well read it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that you written reverse harem before. Is reverse harem something that you're wanting to get into more, or is it something that you're like, is it just another genre that you write, or is it just like a one-off that you're like, oh, I'll write it, but I want to have like a certain more contemporary writing? What's kind of your jazz?
I think I really chose it. Like this is also my first person POV series. I've always written in third before. So I think when I started Dangerous Press, like Sky Warren asked me to come on board, and was kind of like, you know, whatever you'd like to write that fits into your world, you can do it. And I was kind of like, ooh, I'd love a challenge. Like I'd love to kind of go back, like first harem, do like 4 guys instead of 3, and do first person. So the way I'm kind of feeling is like I've just finished the second one and I still have the third one to go. So yeah, so I'm kind of I'm like really focused on just getting that done first, and I feel like when I have which will probably be like early 2023, I can really think about where I want to head next. But I've always liked writing what I feel like writing, if that makes any sense. You know, if I want to write a daddy book, I'll write a daddy book. If I want to write a sweet, you know, kind of himbo book, like I want to write that. Like I don't think you really benefit from trying to, or at least I don't, from trying to like figure it out too far ahead of time, because like if your heart's not in it, I feel like that might come across in your writing. Like it's better to kind of stay flexible and like go where you sort of feel like going.
Do you think that's what's contributed to like your success in being able to write full time as an author, is that you are very versatile in the sense that you don't just stick to daddy DILF romance, or you don't stick to just reverse harem, or you don't stick to like other certain like kind of in the subgenres of romance, you don't stick to a certain one. So do you think that's allowed you to grow an audience more?
I think it's definitely helped me to grow as a writer, but I almost think sometimes, I think it's impossible to say. I don't think anyone has like a formula for success, and I know some writers do way better sticking to one genre and just really, you know, people like the Ice Barbarian series, or you know, it's like if you really know what you like and you can go to that author for what you like, you almost might be better off kind of like repeating stuff that people, you know, I sort of think sometimes maybe it would be better if I'd written 15 daddy books, but in some ways, like I couldn't have done that personally, like, and no offense to anyone who can, I think it's amazing, but like, I just don't have it in me to kind of retell similar stories. I think if I didn't do that, I'd become very frustrated and it wouldn't be as good as what I am currently able to make, if that makes any sense.
So it kind of helps with like creativity, and you don't really feel like you get stuck and stuff. So do you have writer's block a lot, or is it because you write so many different types of books that you're able to kind of like, oh, if this doesn't flesh out, I'll just write a different kind of book, and whatever I'm feeling, is that what kind of helps you with that?
I think having a sense of freedom, having a feeling that like you're able, you know, that you're still in control, and that you're not sort of, I think I've more heard musicians talk about this, where it's like, you know, sometimes your fans can get really attached to one kind of style of your music, but like if you stop and try to just keep making that same style, you can really stagnate, and then all of a sudden you're making music that nobody likes. So it's like, in my case, I kind of think that that's something I've really tried to be aware of, that even if people really love that last album, you don't want to just go back and try to rehash and make album point 2. You want to kind of keep challenging yourself and keep going, you know, where your heart kind of tells you to go. You don't want to get too stuck.
So because you haven't stayed in one particular like subgenre of romance, what would you say is like your top choice of subgenre of romance that you would continue, or like trope of romance that you would continue to write, even if like you had to choose one type? What would be the one type you could write for the rest of your life?
Okay. I don't know. That's so tricky. What do you like? What's a genre you could read like nonstop? Like
I feel like any kind of like dark romance I could read nonstop. Any like cowboy romance. I read a lot of cowboy romance. I could literally like stalker romance. I could that just like guts me and just pulls me in. Or Mafia, I could read forever.
I could totally do, I think like, and if you look at my back catalog, I could totally do tortured older guy, you know, is just like totally given up on love and has like, you know, this ray of sunshine walking. So I guess like grumpy sunshine. I think if I had to pick a trope, I could probably bang out some serious grumpy sunshines. But like that being said, you know, I have kind of done a couple in a row, and then I'm like, no, I want the girl to be a bitch, or I want both of them to be cute. Like, you know, you just kind of, or I want to go dark romance. Sometimes being grumpy, like that was kind of what pushed me into doing Velvet Cruelty and really going with like a really dark tone. I was just like, I just want to write some assholes. I want to write some bad boys. I want to write some bad shit. And it's been so fun. Like, it's been amazing to just get to write criminals and just like total assholes. It's been so good.
I mean, like, I think a lot of like, it's been like a common like thing where people are like, it's fiction. Like, you really think this is real life? When they say that to romance readers, it's like, you can't separate that like real life from fiction. And I'm like, do you really think I'd want these criminals to be doing what they do to these girls in these books?
Oh my God, no. Yeah. Oh, totally. It was so, I think it's like, it's such a safe place to explore fucked up things and like to almost explore the experience of being a woman, which is, you know, to sort of be sort of preyed upon in a very unsexy sense. But I think it's really fun to kind of go into this safe world and experience all these taboo emotions.
Yeah, because I feel like what romance, like the genre as a whole, is that kind of safe space for women to express their sexuality, explore their sexuality, and like to be okay with being not sexualized, but with being sexual and like admitting to themselves, like, hey, I want to get like my guts rearranged tonight. Like, who's gonna do that for me? Like, guys would want to do that for you. Like, let's be honest. And you would like that too. And I think that's what romance, I think at least for me, has done, is that like the sex in general, culturally, I think around the world, has been a very taboo thing in most places. And like it's seen as like a, oh, that's kind of like a shameful thing. And then like in some other societies, it's like, you're a naked person. Why do I even care? Like, you're just a person.
Yes.
And so I feel like romance has helped with that, where it's like women at least are kind of shamed when it comes to being sexual and thinking about sex and thinking about even romance and loving. It's like you love one person, you're gonna marry them, you're gonna have babies, and you're gonna live the rest of your life with that person. And I'm like, babies. I'd rather have 4 men than 4 babies. Like, not for me.
I feel like it would be less work.
Honestly,
4 babies.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's say this for fictional men, because some men in real life would be babies themselves.
Yeah, that is very true.
So for men written by women, that's what I'll say.
Yes.
Is for men written by women. Yeah.
And I think that's I always find that when I'm reading dark romance too, it's like, even when the guys are brutal and like really well written, I think you can always tell that they've been written by women, because they always have this softness or this elegance that just like totally speaks to me about femininity. Like it's it's very interesting.
Yeah. So like what are some authors that you like to read? Because like you are an author yourself, and I always like to get like an insight on what authors inspire them and what they read.
Yeah, so I really like Lilith Vincent. She did a reverse harem, Promised in Blood. I really like Skye Warren. I've been reading her stuff for years. Like, so I've been reading her stuff for ages, and then when I think she reached out to me on Goodreads, and I nearly had a fucking heart attack. That was amazing. But I kind of read across the spectrum. Like, I really, I love Tessa Bailey. Like, I'm trying to remember, she did the Bearded Brothers series. Hang on, I'm gonna have to find it. Penny Reid, I really like. Andy J. Christopher. Like, I kind of I'm always sort of ping-ponging around. Like, I can read contemporary, I can read dark. The only thing I kind of can't, I thought I couldn't do the Stepbrother thing, but I just finished the trilogy, what's it called? Lords of Wrath by Angel Lawson and Samantha Bee. Samantha Rue, and that was really intense and fucked up, but I like devoured all 3 books in like 2 days. So there you go. Like,
I mean, I think that's what dark romance genre is like, that's like where the truly, like, I say, like, the people with real daddy issues and like who really need therapy read dark romance is what I
yes.
Somebody who reads dark romance and goes to therapy and has told my therapist about the things that happen in those books. Yeah. But like, it's so fun sometimes to read about a woman getting stalked And like,
yes,
but she knows, like, she knows who's, it's just different when you like read about it, and you can read the guy's intentions, and you can read the girl, and because it's written by a woman, there's a different lens when it comes to, if a stalker romance was written by a guy, or any stalker book written by a guy that was a romance, I'd be like,
This is really not making me horny.
yeah. I think women writing for other women gives it that lens that allows that kind of safe space of like, I understand you. I'm writing these things because I like this. You probably like it too. So that's one of the reasons why I love it.
Yeah, totally. And I think like it's been in a conversation for years, but it's like the idea that women have, for want of a better term, rape fantasies, which they call them kind of ravishment fantasies, because the whole thing is, in a ravishment fantasy, you want the guy who is fucking you. You know, that is the difference. So it is not a rape scenario. It's a ravishment scenario. It's the idea of this man that you really desire is taking control out of your hands, which I think is something that a lot of people fantasize about.
Yeah.
And it's really good to explore that in a safe, comfortable place.
It's that predator prey. I think I read Chantal Tessier's The Ritual, which is a dark romance. That's a dark romance. And he chases her. And he chases her through like a cornfield and then fucks her in the middle of a cornfield. And it's amazing. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I need.
Yes.
In fiction, not in real life.
Yeah, if that's what I mean, you know, if someone even starts walking too close behind me when I'm walking home from the shops and the sun is going down, I will cross the street. So it's like, I think that's the problem. It's like only very simplistic, very ridiculous people would ever try to say, oh, well, you read these books, so therefore you must want this, because it's just not true. It's not true for anyone, and it's just like totally lacking in nuance. Like you're allowed to fantasize about things that you don't want to happen to you by some random dude in real life.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference too, is that like kind of you mentioned, like the girl wants to be fucked by him. She wants to.
Yeah.
And relinquishing that control that I think a lot of women, no matter what their personality is, they do still have to maintain a level of control and security around themselves, because in this world, women are very susceptible to danger, I would say, and especially from men. And so reading about a woman who can fully let go and trust a man, I think is what is more important than the actual like predator prey situation. And I think it's what adds on top of that, of she's relinquishing and she's trusting that guy and making herself vulnerable. And that's why I love those sexy.
Definitely. And you as the reader, when you have consented to experience these sexy by opening the book, which is another, you know, when a guy's following you down the street, that's not a consensual encounter. So it's again, there's like barriers that you go through when you read dark romance that you understand to a certain extent that you've consented to the experience, which I think the experience of rape, sexual assault, stalking, they're defined by a lack of consent. In every single regard. Like, so it's, I think it's really important to make those distinctions. Like even in Velvet Cruelty, you know, I wanted it to be very clear from the start that January, she likes what they're doing to her, and that is part of the problem. And I think that's kind of a hot fantasy too. You're like, oh no, I don't like it, you know, but you know, your mind says no, but your body says yes. I think it's a really sexy idea.
I mean, like, I think that's also why like safe words are always like a must, because like, I mean, I've said no, but like, it's not as a no of like, it's that playful like no, but like if somebody heard me outside, they would be like, this girl's getting raped. And I'm like, no. It's kind of that fantasy play where it's like, no, it's so good. And like, no, I know I should not be doing this, but it feels so good. And that's why those tropes in those books, I think, are sometimes misconstrued by other people, because there is a nuance when it comes to like BDSM and safe words that I think some people don't realize that not everybody safe word is no. But some people are perfectly fine. Like if no is your like stop, I think that's an important aspect that you need to talk about with your partner and stuff like that. So, but that's why I do dark romance is like, whew, I could die on the cross of dark romance. I don't often get to talk about dark romance with other people.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I love me a good dark romance.
Well, my most popular book, Act Your Age, like until this point, it's like a daddy romance, but they do role play. Like, so it's contemporary, but they do what I would consider very dark role play within the book. And it's just funny to me because it's like all my characters have always had safe words and there's very clear boundaries of consent. But even within that, sometimes readers can be like, well, I don't think it was correct. So I feel like it's kind of important to also say, like, you're not always going to agree. Like everyone has different senses of boundaries. Like, and people are totally entitled to be like, that wasn't enough of a boundary for me. It's like, as long like that's completely, you know, like people are allowed to have different opinions about what works for them and what doesn't. I think there's not one hard and fast rule.
And I think that's what's so important about like just romance in general, is that there's so many genres that if you don't want to read dark romance, you don't even have to like, there's thousands of other books you could read that don't even get near dark romance. And so that's what I love about reading, is that people can choose exactly what they want. And there's so many authors who write exactly what they're looking for. And I think romance genre is one of the vastest genres out there, because the amount of subgenres in romance is scary, because I don't even know all of them.
Yeah. Oh my God. No. My friend Romantically Inclined on Instagram, like she's getting really into, because it's October, like all this pumpkin fucking business. And it is like so baffling to me. And I'm like she seems to be having a great time. I'm like, more power to you, my friend. I do not want to read about pumpkins fucking, but like you do you. Like, I think.
Have you read monster romances before?
So like I've read like the Ice Barbarian series, which I really liked, but like I couldn't read that Minotaur jerk off book because like I am like grossed out by like copious amounts of semen. Like the thought of it just like gives me a bit of a but like I have heard that's really good. Monster isn't totally my thing. Like I'll dip a toe in it, but it's like it's not like my vibe.
I mean, yeah, like oh my gosh, I don't know if you can hear that, but my sister is calling me by accident.
Cool.
I'll call her after. I'm enjoying our conversation. But so like, if you had to choose,
yes,
like kind of like how I said you had to write one genre, if you had to choose one type of romance to read for the rest of your life, what kind of romance would it be?
Ooh.
This is like the hardest question.
Yeah, I know. Probably like fucked up criminal kind of dark romance. I think like it's like that's kind of like I would miss contemporary so much because I love contemporary romance, but like I got into reading romance when I was younger because I loved the dark shit, like I just the bad boys,
Wattpad. Yeah
I'm kind of glad the motorbike gang trend is over, because like I'm very morally opposed to like motorbike gangs, but like I love that, like I liked the bad boys, I like gangs, I like groups.
Well, I think the reason why like we love the criminals is because it's like it's a good guy, but it's a bad guy, but he loves that one girl unconditionally, and he will like protect the shit out of her. Like even if he's selling drugs and like has a criminal empire, he still will protect this beautiful girl.
And he's killing people just all over the place. Like, I'm such a pacifist. Like I am so opposed to murder, but I'm just like, yeah, kill him.
Yeah.
Kill everybody.
Kill anybody who touches her. Like you have to do it. It is a requirement. And sometimes in dark romance, I'm like, if you haven't killed one person in this book, you need to get it started.
Yeah. What are you even doing? If you're not killing at least two people a book.
If you don't,
but like
Or what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, it's just such a good genre. It's like it's very, and I think I was talking again about the Make Out Already podcast about this exact thing. It's like, you don't have to deal with the emotional issues of like dating a psychopath in real life. Like, I'm sure in real life it would be terrifying, horrible. The police would constantly be at your door. Like, it's basically just living in The Sopranos, which is like a nightmare. But like within a dark romance novel, you're just like, you know, you're just like this dark king and queen. It's almost like, even though it's so sexual, it's almost a Disney world. You know, nothing bad can ever really happen to either of you. You're always going to be safe. So you are again kind of like cocooned in this like safe little world. Like, he's not going to go to jail for 4 years and you're going to have to like wait for him to get out. Like, you know, it's just it's a sexy fantasy.
I mean, technically they never die. Like, it's a book.
Yeah.
They'll never die. You can always go back to them.
Yeah.
So kind of to wrap up our episode, I wanted to bring us back to Velvet Cruelty. And for our listeners who have been listening, could you give like a 1-sentence like description of what you would say this book is?
A modern Snow White retelling with a lot of dark, twisted sex between 4 guys who are competing for the same bride.
Oh shit, that was a good one.
Yeah. I did my sexy voice too. I was like, yeah.
So I always ask authors this question, and it's for up and coming authors or somebody who wants to start writing. What is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody?
Everybody hates their first drafts. You just need to persist. You need to keep going. If you continue to edit and work on it, it will get there. And that's all it takes. I think the only difference between people who put books out and people who don't is a certain level of perseverance, because I know so many talented people and I wish they would write books, but they kind of can't get over the idea that it's not going to be perfect the first draft. And it's like, that's such a limiting belief. Everyone's first drafts suck. Just keep going and you'll get something good.
That's great. That's great. So, well, thank you, Eve, for coming on. And thank you to all of our listeners who have listened to this. I feel like we talked about dark romance almost the entire time, which has been
it was great.
I love it. And thank you to all of our listeners who have stuck with us this episode. And thank you to everybody who has supported A Very Bookish Shop and the University of Smutsville. And I hope to see you guys next week. And I hope maybe Eve will come back on when book 2 comes out and I grab a copy and I read it up and taste the men for myself. So thank you, Eve, and thank you to all of our listeners, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Yeah, see you later. Bye.